In this demo, I want to go ahead and show you a new syntax that we're going to use throughout the semester for function definitions. So this will be new for just about everyone in JavaScript. So whether you're a seasoned pro in JavaScript or not, this is fairly modern JavaScript syntax. And I want to start with an HTML page. And I'm just going to title this Modern JavaScript Function Syntax. Okay, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I don't want to deal with any HTML at all. So I'm just going to have a script tag, and I'm going to embed some JavaScript here. Okay, so let's talk about functions as they currently stand and how we're currently comfortable with functions. So if I was to define a function right now, I would define a function as, here's a function. I'm going to name it do something. And when I call do something, I'm logging a message, hello world. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and save that on my desktop as index.html. And I should be able to invoke that function. So I should be able to call the do something function. Okay, so I just define the function, I invoke the function, and then if I go over to my browser, so I'm going to open that in my browser and inspect and go to my console, I expect to see my hello world message. Okay, so this is one type of function. Another way that we've seen functions in the past is we could have a function that will return something. Okay, so our return something function will return some value, something returned. And I have a typo there. And in this case, we can do a console.log of that function definition getting executed. So I return something, and the return value that I get, something returned, I'm going to log to the console. Okay, I could have a third type of function where I take an incoming parameter. So with params, incoming, so I'm going to send something in, and whether I log it or return it doesn't necessarily matter. I could even do a combination of both, so I could do a console.log of incoming and then return incoming. Okay, I think and I hope that we're all comfortable with these types of functions. So in this example, I might want to do a console.log of with params, and I'm just going to put my name in there. Okay, and this last one is a little bit interesting because we log the incoming parameter, we return it, and then we log it a second time. So I should see Brian twice, and you'll notice that I do. Okay, so these are the three different types of functions that I want to deal with, but I want to deal with these functions in a modern syntax. Okay, so the syntax is going to change quite a bit. Okay, so let's start with the do something function because this is a pretty easy one to transition out of. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a comment block here to comment out kind of our old version. And we want to come up with a replacement for it. Okay, so I want to use modern syntax to replace that function. So now I've commented it out, you'll see that it doesn't work, do something is not defined, so that when I try to invoke this function on line 26, you'll notice that that function doesn't exist because it's commented out. I want to fix that using modern JavaScript function syntax. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I know that functions are data types. Okay, so they're their own data type. It's just a variable. And because it's a variable, we talked in a previous screencast about our variables and how we declare them. So whether we declare them with const or let or var, functions are really just a variable. With functions, they don't change very often. So let's start by saying we have a constant, which is our function definition. So I still want to call it do something. I still want it to log my message. I want it to work exactly the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a constant that has a name of do something. Okay? And that constant that's named do something is going to be equal to some function definition. Okay? So I could say that it's equal to this function definition and be on my way. So if I copy and paste that, we should be okay. The only thing that I have to do is I'd have to get rid of the name. So I could say this constant called do something is equal to a function definition that does this thing. And you'll notice that this is working now. Okay, but we're not quite there yet. With modern JavaScript syntax, we're going to start with a constant that's called do something. It's going to be a function, but instead of using the function keyword, we're going to use modern syntax, which is to say I have a function that's defined as this function using big arrow syntax. Okay, so you'll notice I got rid of the function keyword and I replaced it with beginning and ending parentheses and an arrow. And you'll notice now this is working the same exact way. So it's saved, I refresh the page, nothing has changed, it's working. Okay, so this is one example. Let's convert the next one where I want to return something. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and comment out our function. Okay, so I'm going to have another const called return something. It's equal to a function. So same type of syntax there, parentheses, big arrow. And then I want to return something. Okay, so rewritten this function using modern JavaScript syntax. Okay, so I go ahead and refresh the page. You'll notice something returned. It works exactly the same way. However, I want to take this a step further. And this is kind of a special rule of this modern JavaScript syntax. When I return something, and it's a one-line statement, I want to return, a value, and there's only one line of code there. With this modern JavaScript syntax, JavaScript will assume or imply a return. So there's an implicit return. I don't have to explicitly say, hey, return this thing. JavaScript will assume that I want to return something. This allows me to shorten the syntax. So we're going from old function syntax to modern function syntax. And then if we want to iterate kind of a step further, we can copy and paste this, but we can eliminate a little bit more. Okay, and what we can eliminate is I no longer need curly braces because it's just a one-line statement. I no longer need the return because it'll be implied. So I can take this and say I have a constant that's a function definition that returns something returned. Okay, and you'll notice now still works exactly the same way. Okay, so we're iterating here. We go from our kind of old traditional function syntax, C-style functions, where we have a function, the name of the function, beginning and ending parens, with any parameters that we'd have incoming. We return a value to, we have a variable that is a constant, that's a function definition that will do an implicit return because we have a single line of code there. Okay, if we have multiple lines of code, we still need the curly braces. But since we only have a single line of code, JavaScript's going to infer that we want to return that statement, and it'll do an implicit return for us. Okay, that's not always what we want, but in this case, they call it syntactic sugar. Okay, so we get to iterate and kind of keep our code really concise and dense so that we get less code. Okay, so the last example I had was a function that had some incoming parameters. Okay, and I want to go ahead and rewrite that function so that it's still working, and you'll notice that it's broken now. Brian and Brian do not print out. We want the Brian and Brian to print out. We just want to use modern syntax. So again, I'm going to have a constant with params. We have an incoming parameter this time, so it's a little bit different. We could say we have this incoming parameter. And since we have multiple lines of code, I do need the curly braces. Okay, so I want to do the exact same stuff I was doing before. So I'm going to do my console.log, and then I'm going to return the value. Okay, so I go ahead and refresh this. You'll notice I get Brian and Brian. Things are working great again. However, we can apply some syntactic sugar to this example. even though we're not able to eliminate the curly braces here on the right-hand side because we have multiple lines of code that we want to execute, there's still some things we can do. Because our function has one and only one parameter that's an incoming parameter, we no longer need parens around it. Okay, I mean, that seems kind of dumb, but what it really allows us to do is it really allows us to be pretty concise with things. Okay, and I'll show you an example of this, but because we have one and only one parameter, if we have 0 or more than 1, then we need the parentheses around our incoming parameters. But since we have one and only one incoming parameters, we don't need the parentheses there. Okay, so I go ahead and refresh this. You'll see it's still working. Where we can get really concise is a lot of times our function is I have one incoming parameter and I return a value from that one incoming parameter. So a lot of times if I would get rid of this console.log, our functions can look really concise and have a lot of meaning. We have a one-line statement that is really defining a function definition that has an incoming parameter that returns the value of that incoming parameter. We get really concise with these modern functions. Okay, so now you'll notice that I only log Brian once. Looks like I don't have to. It'll implicitly return that for me. So now I only get Brian once, but here's a function definition on line 38. It's probably the most concise function definition that you're going to be able to write, and that has to do with that syntactic sugar that comes with the fact that we're using modern syntax for our JavaScript functions. So as we're looking forward in this class, this is the syntax that we want to use for our function definitions. Our functions are constants, and we define them with that big arrow syntax so that we can get clear and concise function definitions. Okay, and I realize I say they're clear and concise function definitions, and if this is the first time you're seeing these function definitions written this way, you're probably more comfortable with the traditional syntax for function definitions, and you're thinking, hey, this is more clear and concise, and this makes more sense, and this is more readable. Well, this is one line of code versus 4 lines of code, and we're doing the same thing. And once you get used to the new syntax, you'll learn to appreciate the new syntax in terms of readability. Okay, so these new modern JavaScript functions will become clear and concise as we use them more and more. And this is what we're going to use kind of going forward in the class for our function definitions.